we have a pretty solid NFL season taking place, but no one is aware because of Shedeur Sanders. And it'll sound like I'm making too much of this, but the clickbait of Shedeur Sanders, the media thirsts, its lust for the clicks and the traction that come along with a third-string NFL quarterback, a fifth-round draft pick. Shedeur Sanders and what's going on in Cleveland. Cleveland, a 1-3 football team. Cleveland, a city and a team that's never won a Super Bowl. Cleveland, perhaps the worst-run franchise in all of professional football, has all the spotlight on it because of the fifth-round quarterback, the pick they took at 144. Shedeur Sanders and well-off media and what Dion has created, the myth of Shedeur Sanders, is overshadowing every other storyline in the National Football League. How can Rex Ryan go on ESPN and go viral because he's taking a dump on the third-string quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, the 144th pick in the draft, someone that led Colorado to a 9-4 season? He's the biggest story in all of football, and the way to go viral is talking about Shedeur and what's going to go on in Cleveland. Is Joe Flacco going to get benched? And is it racism that Shedeur Sanders, if Joe Flacco doesn't get benched, that Shedeur is not getting that spot? This entire season is about Shedeur Sanders, and let me walk you through a few of the things that we're ignoring while we hyperventilate about Shedeur Sanders. This is amazing. This is unprecedented. Tim Tebow couldn't do this. When Tim Tebow was getting all that shine in Denver, they were making the playoffs. Tim Tebow won the Heisman Trophy, led Florida to 2 national championships. Tim Tebow had actually accomplished some things. Tim Tebow is one of the greatest college football players of all time. Shedeur Sanders, what? He went 9-4 one year at Colorado and was second or third team All-American. But he's bigger than Tim Tebow.
I just want to ask you a question then. If this is what the fans want, like we talk about paying fans respect all the time, is social media, and maybe it's just the algorithms, I don't know what it is, but maybe it is an indication that that's what the fans want. I don't want it. I certainly don't. But there are enough people interested that it is going, like it does get the best traction. So fans are telling us something.
No, and Steve, you chime in here as well. I don't think it's what fans want. I think it's what we on social media that make a living on social media, we know that there's traction in Shedeur. And so everybody's just doing what's in their best business. They're the algorithms, and just I don't think it's a true reflection of what fans want. In terms of, I'll give you the example. I saw there's been a very dishonest conversation going on about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. And there have been people like Caitlin Clark, there are flaws to her game, flaws to her approach. Caitlin Clark, not as valuable as people have made it out to be, but so many content creators and everybody in social media knows, hey, let's take a super extreme position on Caitlin Clark. Either she's trash and she's the worst thing in the world, I can get clicks there, or I can argue she's the greatest thing that's ever happened in sports and I can get clicks there. When we on this show, occasionally, when I would try to say, man, Caitlin Clark, she's bratty, she yells too much at the refs, she takes bad threes, we would lose audience, we would lose subscribers, people weren't interested. But that was the truth. And it's been borne out. They damn near made the WNBA finals without her. And it's because there were some negative aspects of her game, but she couldn't talk about it because everybody wanted to talk about it in a way that protected their traction and their views rather than the truth.
Wait a minute, though, Jason.
And so
the losing of subscribers it's different if it's not being shown to them. That's a different story because that's algorithmic. But us losing subscribers is actually the people telling us what they think and that they want to leave. Like that is the audience telling us something. They made that decision. The algorithm didn't.
The audience is telling us that they've been programmed and rigged into a system that social media contributes to that, hey, you don't have to hear things you disagree with. It's unhealthy. I grew up wanting to be Mike Royko, columnist out of Chicago, wasn't a sports columnist. But the thing I loved about Mike Royko when I was reading him in the 1970s and 1980s, half the time I disagreed with him completely. Half the time I thought, oh man, he's nailed it here. And that's what I loved about him, is I didn't know the unpredictability. My thoughts were going to get challenged. And he was the most popular columnist in the country. People used to enjoy having their thoughts challenged, enjoyed engaging with new ideas. Social media has rigged us up to, we just want to hear what we want to hear, and it's unhealthy. And I think it interferes with us enjoying reality of what's really going on. And that's the disappointment that I'm expressing. Like, man, there's some interesting things going on. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Well, Jason, the reality is when you're in Kansas City at the peak of your popularity or polarization, right, you would write something, and if a young Steve Kim who wanted to be Jason Whitlock completely disagreed, I couldn't immediately tweet or go to your Instagram and cuss you out. I'd probably have to write a letter, a strongly worded letter. But it'd be 2-3 weeks before you got it, and you'd be like, okay. But you didn't have time to say, no, but this is what I didn't mean to offend it. No, you just said, well, you're offended, brother. You're just going to have to take it. I actually think the immediacy of the ability to write or to interact with the media members has made them more scared. It's made them more cautious. I think actually the buffer of having to mail a letter, you actually dug in your position and you said, hey, look, it is what it is. Now, to the point about Shedeur and why I actually think there is a segment of America that really cares about this. I think there are fans. Because think about it, Jason. What was the story of the first night of the draft? All right, which team's going to take Shedeur in the first round? The whole draft. Mel Kiper, the 30th pick, is still talking about, he's getting angry and angrier. Rich Eisen, virtue signaling how it really affects him, right? You're like, wow, this is interesting. Cam Ward is getting completely ignored, but a guy that falls out of the first round is the big story. It's what we talked about the next morning. So night number 2, rounds 2 and 3, then it became, all right, where is Shedeur going to land? Didn't land anywhere. It became a bigger story. And then by Saturday, martyrdom. He became a martyr. He became a victim. He became a symbol of white supremacy, the man holding you down. So I think in many respects, the whole ordeal of the draft, those 3 nights, turned him into something much more symbolic than just a mere quarterback being drafted in round number 5.
So you're pointing to a different source of the interest in Shedeur than you're saying he's not just simply.
It is cultural. Jason, we pointed this out, that the first game that he played in Carolina, every time he made a great play, they'd pan up to the crowd, be a black person in a Shedeur jersey, right? It was kind of a joke. People were making memes about it. It was hard not to notice. Of course, when he played the Rams, it looked like the worst quarterback ever. They didn't do those shots, by the way. But yes, I believe that Shedeur, with everything that happened at Colorado and his father, this has become more or less kind of like this cultural subject or topic that everyone has an interest in, at least for now.
TJ, Steve's raised a fascinating point, and it's a different angle than what I was taking, just saying like what Shedeur represents is this trolling of establishment, white America, evangel. Your thoughts on me or Steve's take on what's at the heart of the interest in Shedeur?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, look, some of it is inarguable that some of it is manufactured by the media. The media has an interest in the Sanders family for whatever reason, right? Half these guys that talk about it on TV are friends with Dion and they want to keep him relevant. Like the media has an interest. We know that I think is inarguable. But it is kind of interesting because most people are, at least to Steve's point, most people have no idea how to evaluate a quarterback. In fact, if you listen to guys like Mel Kiper, even the NFL GMs have no idea how to evaluate a quarterback. That was Mel Kiper's entire position on day 3 of the draft. And so all they know is what they heard for a long time, that he might be the number 1 pick. Shedeur Sanders is amazing. This is incredible. And they saw him, and he had the Heisman Trophy winner on his team. And they got to watch him televised a lot. They were in a lot of primetime games, all that sort of stuff. And so they were familiar with him, and then he dropped, and that's all anybody talked about for the time. And it was the most interesting. That nobody can argue that there was something more interesting than that during the draft. So it totally owned the draft and has gone into the season. So I'd probably lean Steve's way as far as there is some interest when you bring it up, and that's why the social media stuff is pretty real. It may be reflective. But again, just to go back to what I said before, I actually don't care. It's not interesting. But you and I, Jason, may be blinded by being like actual football fans, and whereas everybody else is kind of a casual football fan. They're just interested in interesting stories.
Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.